welcome back for another book review. Today we are talking about this one. So this is the Hedgewitch's Little Book of Spells, Charms, and Brews by Tudorbeth. I think so, you're supposed to say that. Honestly, I'm not really confident. So once again, the title kind of says it all. It's, I don't know, really charms and brews, but whatever. So to me, they're all just spells. It's a various collection of different spells and things that you can do as a witch. Covers your basic areas of life, health, protection, love, money. Again, the usuals. I gave this one a 2 out of 5. So the spells are extremely basic, and honestly, a lot of the time, the verbiage used felt very whiny to me. And I was getting to a point, I'm like, the universe is just gonna be like, no. Simply because, like, some of the stuff you could just do on your own. Like, there's one, we'll get to some of the specifics, but there was one that was for, like, a headache, and I'm like, you could just go take Tylenol. Like, you don't need a spell for that. Like, take some responsibility for your life. You don't need to be calling the great cosmic powers because you have a little headache. You know, like, and just the verbiage and the way it goes, a lot of times she always chooses to scratch her nails when I'm recording, so I'm sorry that you hear that in the background. But the verbiage, if we follow like any of like the law of attraction, or just in general, most witches also follow this as well, of like the words you use should always be like present tense, and it is not usually, and it's again very whiny. The other thing with this book is that we're just taking consent once again and just putting that aside when it's inconvenient, because it tells you like, don't do spells on others, and then immediately goes into telling you to do spells on others, specific people. So like, consistency. Also, information not very helpful. Again, crystals, don't put them in water. Like, you have to have that so clean, and like the books that we've read that talk very detailed about it and are like from that field will tell you pretty much don't do that. But like also no warnings of like, hey, if you put like selenite in water, it's not gonna be there in the morning. It's gonna dissolve. And like if you leave amethyst in the sunlight, it's also going to disappear. So it's just a lot of information that I feel like you need to research further to make sure that you're good on. And if you're getting the crystal information like kind of sketchy, like what about the herbs? Like I'm not as familiar with herbs, but again, it's just something to keep in mind. You're gonna need to research further. So I would recommend this if you need spell ideas, but again, you're gonna need to be willing to research further or have some background knowledge. Again, I know that you would never cleanse selenite in water, and that you would never leave citrine in sunlight, let alone herbs. You know, there's just stuff that you're gonna need to have background knowledge or plan to research further. So we have some specifics that I wanted to go into, just as some examples of this book of what you're kind of getting into. So I already mentioned the first point, which is the no warnings with the crystals against sunlight, water, absolutely no warnings. So the next point, my note says do not do love on a specific person, then has the all mind spell on page 34, literally telling you to write your intended's name on candles to make them love you. So it's convenient to use, you know, consent as like a, oh, don't do that, and then immediately tells you to do that. One of the only like bonus things of this book that I did enjoy is at the end of each chapter does have a quick reference summary of like the herbs, crystals, and oils to go to, which I did appreciate. Once in a while there's like a small little gem in the books I don't love, and that's one of them. That's a convenient page to have. And then once again, with consent on page 90, visualize your friend suddenly realizing how they are living and clearing their mess away. And this was a spell to help your friend with like feeling like a hoarder, but also like it's your judgment if they're living in a hoarder situation, not your friend. And also, again, consent. There's no like, go ask your friend to make sure they're chill with that. Just do it. And it's like, you know, consent goes across the board. It's not just for attracting a romantic partner, it's for everybody. Just consent. It's a great thing. We should use that. Also, the way the spells were written, I had this note like about, it had to be somewhere around like the 100 to 150 page range. I didn't actually put a note. I just was reading and was like, oh my god. So I noticed that a lot of the spells felt like it was like this asking and whining permission from the universe rather than empowering yourself. And as I'm moving more into like affirmations and like the power of the mind and stuff, like I'm curious how many books are gonna have this. Like I haven't really paid too much attention to that, But like, truly, it's so much of this whining and begging of the universe. Like, please let this work. Let me have this. I want this. Please let it work. It's like, you're a witch. Do it yourself. Like, why are we in such a begging, needy vibe? Didn't like that. Also, every single chapter, there was some form of like, why is consent just conveniently ignored all the time? So this was for, I think it was a career chapter, and it was talking about like getting a job interview and like getting the job from it. And one of the lines it has you say is, the interviewers will hire me on the spot. They will know I am right for the job. But again, consent. Like that's crossing lines, right? Because you are taking away their free will and deciding that you, who has no idea about the other candidates, have decided you are the best choice. Therefore, take away the interviewer or interviewers' free will to give you the job. And it might not even be the right job for you, which is again why we usually say don't do specifics, leave it up to universe of like, hey, I will get the perfect job for me within this time frame of like, you know, the next few interviews I go to, one of them will be my perfect job or something along those lines. But no, let's just take consent and just... Also, the spells, especially like the verbiage and stuff, felt extremely repetitive and just kind of basic. And this book honestly did have quite a bit of a Wiccan feel to it. And one line in particular that of course always gets me rolling my eyes was the shout out to assuming that all women are going to be mothers line, because on page 174, the maid and the mother have been mine. And it was a spell about menopause, and it's like, you know, not every woman's gonna be a mom, right? And also, just on that note, like, a lot of this book, there was really not much for men, which I don't like either. And non-binary folks, like, just, there's so much gender shoved in for no reason, and it's very feminine based. It's very much she and her, which is fine, but also like, you could just not, because you're talking to one reader at a time. So you can just choose your audience to be you. That's an option. Also, again with the wording, so we have, Mother Goddess, such pain I have, from month to month, suffer do I. And it's like, again, the words you're choosing to use. And I know that I'm on my own journey right now of like affirmations and the words you say to yourself, but like, you know, maybe when you're doing spell work and you're really trying to harness the powers of the universe, don't keep adding in the phrases that you don't want. That's just a thing. Also, P.S. that was the first spell to help with your period. I've never found them to be helpful, so I don't know if anyone else will, but I've never had them work. Ever. And again with the whiny spells, so on page 179 there was a headache spell, and it says, Gods hear me please, let my pain ease, take away the pain in my head, I do not want to spend the day in bed, blessed gods hear me please, and it harm none, so mote it be. And it's like, again, I mentioned this earlier, but dude, just go grab a Tylenol. Like, you don't need to be doing a spell for a headache. And that feels so baby witch levels. Like, it's not beginner, because if you are going to do a spell for a headache, you are in fact a baby witch. It does not have an age attached. But like, I feel like most of us have been there when we were starting out. And especially those of us who started as teens and young teens, like I did. I started at 13, and that was one of the first spells we tried, was a headache spell. It wasn't this one at all. Ours had a lot of different ingredients to use, but like, go lo and behold, it didn't work. And you know what did? Tylenol. Or ibuprofen, or Advil, or whatever your pain choice is. But like, you don't need to be doing a spell for a headache. Now, if it was like chronic headaches, I could potentially see something. But like, it's not labeled as such in this book. It's just for your generic headache. Which is like, just take some Tylenol and then go drink some water. Join me in the drinking of water. This is my first one of the day. Like, just go drink water. Go take some Tylenol. Go about your day. And like, the verbiage of that just felt very whiny. Like, well, please, just take it away. Please, 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 please. I don't know. It felt very whiny to me. And very much like, you aren't sovereign over yourself at all. You are a witch, and we're not acting like it. Like, witches are supposed to be able to make their own reality. And this is very begging and whiny. And like, you have no power yourself, you need outside forces to help you. And I didn't like the vibe of it, honestly. The last one is just one that always makes me chuckle because it is the most generic response ever. So there's a spell to help for depression, and can you guess what it told you to do? I'll give you a second. Here we go. Are you ready? Did you comment it? Yep, take a bath. Every single time. If you are depressed, if you are sad, just go take a bath. That's gonna fix all of your problems. Every single one is in fact fixed by taking a bath. And then there's a little caveat at the end of like, oh, also if this doesn't work, like maybe talk to your doctor. And if you're feeling depressed, you're supposed to think back to the stupid bath. And that's the thing that's gonna solve and cure your depression. And I'm like, of all of the options, it fits this book so much, but also really like just no. So anyways, needless to say, I did not love this book. This is why I love the library, so that I can read these books and realize I in fact do not need them on my bookshelves. So anyways, I would love to know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons. If you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.